Chapter 21. Brooke.
"There you are, girl," Charles scolded as soon as I walked through the front door. "Where have you been?" "Out, but I'm back now to make dinner, don't worry," I said, trying to slide past him. He put his arm out like a clothesline to block the kitchen from me. "I don't think so. Sit down right now." I obeyed, my heart beating frantically. "Millie tells me there are rumors going around in town," he said. He let silence hang in the air, and I realized I was supposed to fill it. "People tell rumors all the time. That happens in a town as small as Midnight Springs. What do you want me to make for dinner?" I said, standing again. He pointed down, and I plopped back on the couch. When we first moved in, it wouldn't have been safe to sit on the couch without looking first to see what would poke into your behind. Now the only thing on it was a soft, fluffy blanket. "There are rumors that 2 men were attacked in the woods by a wolf. Do you know anything about that?" he asked. I couldn't hide it from him, not when he knew the truth. He could read it on my face. "He's never attacked anyone before," he explained. "Not that I know of, anyway. And he attacked the 2 worst people that he could have. Those men are wild cards. They'll shoot him, Brooke. They'll hunt him down in the woods and shoot him." I put my face in my hands, knowing this was true. I was overwhelmed and felt helpless. "What on earth possessed him to do something so stupid?" he asked. I uncovered my face and looked him in the eye. "You?" he asked. "What do you have to do with this?" The night before I came here to ask about a job, I went to the shelter. My mother was there, and we got into a fight, so they made me leave. I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I tried to find Peter in the woods. Randy and Robert followed me, I explained. His body started to shake more than usual as he shuffled backward and sat in his recliner. "You don't have to tell me what happened, girl. I can fill in the rest." "Nothing happened. I mean, they tried to, but Peter got there in time. I was fighting them when he showed up as a wolf. He saved me. That's how I found out the truth about him. He brought me here the next morning to ask for your help," I said. The fear I had that night still felt real. I had to remind myself that I was safe, but I could still feel that man's blood in my mouth as I bit down. "Can I use your phone?" I asked, standing and looking for it. He pointed to the wall next to the kitchen to reveal a corded landline. I wouldn't have any privacy, but it would have to do. 911, what's your emergency?" "I have an anonymous tip for the police regarding the men who were attacked by the wolf," I said, my voice trembling. I was second-guessing myself. "Officer McLean, how can I help you?" a man asked when I was patched through. I didn't know how to proceed. "Hello?" "Yes, sir. I wasn't at the town meeting, but I heard about what was said. I wanted to verify that those men followed a girl into the woods, not a wolf." This was a bad idea. I needed to hang up before I walked too far down this path. But as I looked over at Charles, his face gave me the courage to continue. "Okay, what evidence do you have?" His voice was neutral, not suspicious or trusting. "I am the girl," I said. "I don't want anyone to know who I am, and I'm not looking to press charges, but I don't want anyone to go after the wolf. The wolf did attack those men, but he stopped them from doing something terrible to me." He was quiet for a moment. "I appreciate your call, and I'm not saying I don't believe you for a moment, but the public won't. I need something more concrete than the word of an anonymous caller." "I thought you would say that," I agreed. "But I thought of a way I can prove that I was there in the woods too." "Yes? What's that?" "I ran from the men when I realized they were following me. I was screaming for help, so one of them put his right hand over my mouth." I released a shaky breath and willed myself to go on. In order to get him to stop, I bit him as hard as I could. I yelled again, so he put his bloody hand under my chin to hold my mouth closed. The other man wrestled with my legs, trying to take off my clothes. The wolf attacked him first, biting his arm. I didn't know it at the time because it was so dark, but that man turned out to be Robert Geller. When he saw his friend attacked, the one holding my upper body and face backed away from me and started to run. The wolf pounced on him next and bit his calf, causing him to fall to the ground. I later found out that the second man was Randy Adams, and that he is still in the hospital. You can know for sure that I'm telling the truth because you will find a bite mark on his right hand. From a human, not a wolf. I was quiet as I waited to hear if he believed me. Are you sure that you don't want to press charges? This is a serious offense we're talking about here. If you're worried about your safety, we will keep you safe from them, he assured me. But I wasn't worried about my safety. I was worried about Millie's. She wasn't going to be sent to a foster home because of me. No, sir. I feel that justice has been served to them. What I don't want is for anyone to go into the woods after the wolf. I don't want him to be punished for saving me. The wolf didn't hurt you in any way? Officer McLean asked. You weren't attacked by him as well? No, sir. After the men fled, the wolf turned and ran the opposite way. I believe it went toward the river. We were very close to the river when it happened, I said, hoping the truth matched what the men had said. I had no idea how much of their story was fabricated. Okay. Are there any other details you can share with us that would help us cement this case? None that I know of, sir. And I'm sorry I can't come forward. I feel that it's safer for me and my family to be anonymous. I don't want to be in the spotlight for this. I hope you can understand that, I said. I felt like a coward, but it wasn't fear that held me back. It was responsibility. I do, he assured me, but I also want you to know that I would be behind you if you came forward, and I hope that you do one day. When I said nothing, he said, Thank you for calling. I will do everything in my power to stop the hunt. When I hung up the phone, Charles was standing right beside me. He put his hand on my shoulder with affection and gentleness. I'm sorry that happened, girl, he said, tears in his old gray-blue eyes. I nodded and tried to smile. The wolf left you alone after that? He didn't hurt you? He verified. You promise? No, he didn't hurt me. But it was more than that, I began. You guys are never going to believe this, Millie said, rushing in the front door. I thought she was in her room. There's a wolf in the car. The hand that was on my shoulder now covered the old man's face. He's here, in my car. Please tell me this is a joke. Yeah, I didn't want him in the woods with the hunters going out there, I explained. I'll clean the car later if that's what you're worried about. He did put his paws on the seats. What are you guys doing? Call the police or animal control or something, Millie demanded. We're talking about a wild animal here. Charles shook his head but said nothing. He's safe, Millie, I said. We aren't calling anyone. I brought him here. He's here because I'm protecting him. Her face scrunched up like she smelled something bad. Protecting him? What if it's the wolf that attacked those men? It is, I verified. But he attacked them because they were attacking me. He was protecting me, and he didn't hurt me. Her face slacked as realization hit her. I heard that Peter spoke up at the meeting and said he saw them follow a girl into the woods. It was you? Of course it was you. I bet you're the only girl Peter ever talks to. Is that how you met him? I winced, unsure of how much truth I should tell. Kind of. I'd met him briefly before that. But yes, he helped me after the attack, and those men didn't hurt me. Why did he say he didn't know who the girl was? She asked. I don't want anyone to know it was me, I said, and you can't tell anyone either. I hated asking her to keep so many secrets, but it was necessary for her safety. Why not? Oh, because the last thing we need are cops snooping around in our lives, she guessed. Exactly, I said, hoping I wasn't giving her a skewed worldview of the police force. Officer McLean had seemed sincere and helpful. If I felt like I had the freedom to do so, I would have trusted him with the truth. I had never trusted that snake, Sheriff Williams, though, and our recent situation wasn't helping that at all with him being the one behind the hunt. So you have, like, a pet wolf now? Millie asked, still confused. What do we feed it? Charles snorted and looked up to the heavens. Helen, these kids are taking over our house. They have the wolf out in the car right now. My life is in total chaos. He sighed and continued looking up with a sad smile. You would have loved it. I hate that you're not here to experience it with me, or maybe instead of me, because these kids are already driving me crazy. He disappeared into his room and emerged with a gun. No, I yelled. He's safe. He rolled his eyes. I know he won't hurt me, girl, but I still have to protect you two. You don't, I tried to explain without telling Millie. He knows me. He remembers me. He sighed, looking more impatient with me than usual. I used to think that too, but it was only wishful thinking. You want him to remember you so much that you're projecting that onto him. He's still an animal. Millie's head swung from side to side, following each of us as we spoke, trying to fill in the gaps we were leaving. Her look of confusion proved that she hadn't. It's not like it used to be, I said. It's really him. He really remembers me. I'll show you. I ran outside, Charles and Millie screaming after me. Stop! Brooke, the windows are down! He was setting up on alert when I got there, no doubt wondering what all the fuss was about. When he quickly surveyed me and saw that I was okay, his body relaxed. Charles doesn't know it's you in there, I said, walking slowly toward him. He thinks you won't remember me. Girl, don't take another step or I'll shoot, Charles said from behind me. He had his gun pulled up with his eye on the scope. Millie was hunkered behind him. I'd never seen her look so afraid. He's like your child, Charles, I argued, keeping my feet firmly planted. He is, but so are you. I will protect all three of you, no matter what, he said, his finger poised on the trigger. Peter hunched like he was about to jump out of the window. No, Peter, be still, I warned him. Everything's fine. Even if he shoots, it's only a tranquilizer. But I need you to prove that you're in there without either of us moving. The way his eyebrows furrowed almost looked human. I don't know how either, I spoke for both of us. Charles took his eye out of the scope to look at us better. The wind ruffled the thin gray hair on his head, and he didn't look protective anymore. He looked curious. I'm going to ask you questions, I said, fumbling for a plan. I need you to respond yes by whining and no by howling. He grunted, and it was obvious he hated this plan. What? I demanded. It's not like either one is difficult for you. He huffed loudly through his nostrils, trying to make me understand. I sighed. You can't howl. You might attract the hunters. Brooke, this is crazy. Let's go inside, Millie said, her eyes wide. She motioned for me to join her in the safety behind Charles. Do the nose thing then, I offered. Whine for yes and do your huffy sigh for no, okay? He whined softly. Great. Now I had to think of questions. Is that girl's name Elizabeth? I said, pointing to Millie. He huffed. Carly? Huff. Susan? Huff. Millie? Whine. Charles lowered the gun. Are you going to hurt her? Huff. Are you going to hurt that man? Huff. Do you know him? Whine. I walked softly toward him, careful to watch Charles in my periphery. He didn't raise the gun again. Can I touch you? Whine. He came closer and stuck his full upper body out the window. I pet him for a few seconds and then buried my face in his fur, holding him close to me. Ahem, Millie said. If you're trying to get me to believe that our good, quiet Peter is that wolf, I'm going to need more evidence than this. Charles sighed. You'll get your evidence soon enough, girl. I'll go get some clothes for him so you don't see too much. When he turns back, he'll be as naked as a jaybird. Brooke Romero to the principal's office, the secretary said over the speaker. Raven looked bewildered as she searched my face for any clues about what it could be about. My face had to have looked as dumbfounded as hers did. Through the glass doors, I could see an officer standing in the foyer to the principal's office, chatting with him. Miss Cumberland, the school counselor, was there as well. When she saw me, her face filled with pain. Had they figured it out? Did the policeman on the phone trace the call and sell out my identity? I wanted to run, but I had already been spotted. I dragged my feet through the threshold and walked straight to the principal's office without acknowledging any of them. They all filed in behind me and shut the door. The principal took a seat behind his desk, the officer standing near him. Miss Cumberland and I sat in the chairs facing them. Inspirational quotes littered the wall behind him, but none of them helped me feel better. Hang in there wasn't particularly inspiring when I didn't know what I was hanging on to. The principal's phone rang on his desk, but he pushed a button and didn't answer it. Whatever we were in here for was too important for him to stop and take a call. I shifted in my seat, causing it to creak. This is Officer Chase Carey, Miss Cumberland said beside me. It startled me that she spoke first. Carey? That wasn't the name of the officer I talked to. It was McLean. He nodded his head to me in a hello sort of way, but I said nothing. My heartbeat was pounding in my ears. I almost didn't even hear the lawnmower as it passed by the window, but the smell of the fresh-cut grass was strong enough that it made it through the window panes. They knew, but I didn't know how much, so I stayed quiet. I would add no fuel to this fire. They would have to pry the truth out of my cold, dead mouth before I sold my sister to strangers. The three exchanged hesitant glances with each other before Miss Cumberland spoke again. Why was the principal even there? Why weren't we in her office? Brooke, there's not an easy way to say this, but your mother... She stopped, most likely because she was distracted by the way my face and body reacted. Shock, anger, disgust. They all raced through my body at the word mother. Why did my mother have anything to do with this? She passed away, she finished, resting her hand on top of mine. Her face was sweet and empathetic. What? I finally asked. She's dead? That couldn't be right. She couldn't actually be dead. There had to be some mistake. I looked around the room for verification, but the principal's face was expressionless. The officer nodded slightly with sad eyes. How? I asked. From overdose? Because really, what else would it be? Most likely, the officer said. She was dropped off at the hospital last night, but passed shortly after. Who brought her in? I asked. I didn't know if she had any friends that weren't addicts, and the guy who had stolen from us didn't seem like the type that would drive someone to the hospital. We don't know, he admitted. It wasn't like it mattered anyway. It wouldn't have been anyone I knew. My mind was spinning. What was the last thing I said to her? The last thing she said to me? It rang out clearly. I had yelled at her for not being worried about Millie. Has anyone told Millie? I asked the room without looking at anyone. My eyes were fixed on a cactus on the principal's desk. Was it real? It would be hard to know for sure without touching it. And if I touched it at that moment, I wasn't sure I would feel it. Miss Cumberland answered, No, sweetie. We thought we would tell you first and see how you thought it would be best to proceed. You know her best, and we want to do what's best for her. We also need you to answer some questions, the officer said, speaking firmly but kindly. The principal grunted in disapproval, reminding me he was there. Me? What do you mean? I don't know anything about it. I haven't seen her in days, I said. I was glad that was the truth. They couldn't connect me with her death in any way. That's what we're worried about, hun. Have you and Millie been living alone? Miss Cumberland asked. Her hand was still on mine, so I yanked it back. No, I said, thanking the good Lord that was the truth, too. We've been staying with a family friend. We're doing fine. The officer furrowed his brows. Brooke, I know you spent some time in foster care before your grandmother was contacted when you were small. It may have been a bad situation, and I don't want to minimize that in the least, but not all people are like that. We will make sure you and your sister are safe. I'm not lying, I demanded through tears. Whether they were tears of grief, anger, or fear, I couldn't say. It was probably a cocktail of all of them. We are safe. Okay, then who is it? He asked, his voice kind but a little suspicious. And tired. He seemed really tired. Charles Atkins, I said. Millie and I have been staying with him because Mom disappeared. We are in a good place and have a guardian. We are fine. I'll run his name and address and call someone from CPS to meet us there, he said, pulling out his phone. We'll go as soon as we're done talking to Millie. Why? I asked. Why couldn't he take my word for it? I wasn't lying. I wished he was like Raven and he could tell that I was telling the truth by looking at me. I need to know you aren't making him up, he said without looking at me. He was texting furiously, no doubt relaying all of this information to a CPS agent. The principal cleared his throat. Charles is real. I can't vouch for whether the girls are living there or not, but I've known Charles for years. He's a good man, and he always has been. If the girls are staying with him, they are indeed safe. I smiled. Maybe the principal had a use after all. Thank you, Stan, he said, then looked me in the eye. But we have to prove that it's a safe place for the two of you to the social worker from CPS. If so, he can be declared your guardian.